Welcome to Food Talk for Health. Here is your host, Tonia King.
My guest today is clinical master herbalist and certified nutritionist Donnie Yance. Thank you, Donnie, for joining me today.
You are so welcome, and thank you for having me.
Your journey through healing and nutrition and music and everything that I have been reading about you is so fascinating. How do we begin? How or when did you even begin your work with healing?
Well, I actually began in high school, believe it or not, and I was probably entering my junior year in high school, and three things actually really set the stage. One was that my first girlfriend's mom was kind of a health nut, so all of a sudden I was exposed to it, kind of hanging out at her home a little bit and learning a lot about natural foods through her. Back then, this was in the mid 70s when, it was Carlton Fredericks and Adele Davis and Pablo Arola and people like that were kind of on the front line. And so I learned some from that. And then my hippie cousins that lived in Oregon, where I live now, because I grew up on the East Coast outside of New York in Stamford, Connecticut, sent me an older book by Jethro Kloss called Back to Eden.
Oh,
And
yeah.
even though the book is written in a very crude herbal way, it was based on what's called Thomsonianism, which was the earliest system of American herbal medicine. There was something about the way it was framed and this that our creator left all this great medicine and food and how nature is so beautiful in so many ways, one of which was providing all this beautiful healing medicine for us. And so that also sparked my interest. And then being a musician, I'm a bass player and really influenced by predominantly jazz, R&B, soul, funk is the music I kind of resonated with. My father was a singer, and so he exposed me to a lot of great jazz music growing up. And then believe it or not, I got really in love with John Coltrane and then John McLaughlin. And so all of a sudden there was this deeper meaning behind the music, and it kind of resonated with me in a kind of spiritual way. And so all of a sudden, and then I got exposed to St. Francis of Assisi, and then I got very much into my faith and lived in a Eastern Rite Byzantine Franciscan Ukrainian monastery, actually. And so for almost 3 years, I'm professed as a Franciscan. So all of a sudden I saw none of this is separate, that this all kind of makes up who I am. So my spirituality, my music, and my pursuit of healing and medicine all kind of came together at the same time and just grew and grew and grew and grew. And it's still daily just growing in me.
How fascinating.
I gig out every weekend pretty much, not my own music though, which is very different than the music that I gig out and play with. But so music is still not only a big part of my life, but the whole way that I have built this paradigm shift in medicine that I call Madiri care, this new model of healing. I built that with some philosophical principles and thematic elements that are very harmonious to music. Matter of fact, if you ever look at the sign, the Chinese symbol sign for herbal medicine, and then look at the sign for music, they're identical, other than the sign for herbal medicine has a little grass hat on it. The whole symbol is identical otherwise. So even
Wow.
back in the Taoist days when the early the unfolding of traditional Chinese medicine came out of Taoism, they saw parallels between music and medicine and herbal medicine, such in the way that I do as well. Well,
Wow.
if you could for a moment, like not just understand music from the place of listening and how everything is vibrations and everything is
Mm.
energy. And so plants have energy, music has energy. But when you see medicine through a understanding of music and know that in natural medicine, in the world of nature, everything is in flux, everything is moving, and everything is and synchronizing throughout the body. So there's this concept now of network medicine, understanding that we have molecular networks, we have cellular networks, we have organ system networks. Everything's communicating with everything inside our body at every level, and everything is in flux. Nothing is stagnant. So when you then apply a concept of music, and if you can believe that plants differ very much from isolates and medicine, what we consider drug medicines, in that they're musical in the way that they work in our body. They improvise, they get in there and they can kind of tweak everything a little bit, and they can do different things in different people. They can even make different compounds in different people through the gut microbiome. There's this beautiful interplay, this beautiful interaction that's incredibly musical when you really dive into it. And like just a heartbeat alone is a rhythm thing, your heart's beating like a drum, it's like that. So
Absolutely.
everything in the body is working like music. And so what is most appropriate to be the cornerstone of medicine should be herbal medicine, which is the oldest system of medicine. And people have interacted with plants for food, medicine, clothing, for beauty, for scent, everything since the beginning of time. And so we've sort of abandoned that. We've abandoned that and sort of even hijacked herbal medicine to isolate compounds and create isolated drugs, eventually synthetic drugs from those isolates. And so even, it's a great I think disservice to the holism of medicine, and really what I practice is this concept of gentle, humble medicine, and a partnership with our innate healing, because the best of medicine does only a couple of things, really. If you really want to get down to, I want to do something natural for my health, well, whatever you do should do just a couple of things. It should make us more robust, it should make us more efficient, and get our bodies to auto-regulate itself in a more efficient and better way. So efficiency and robustness are the best ways to improve our health, which is in line with the life force. So everything living has a life force, and life forces can, they get along with each other beautifully. The plant world, life force, and us. We're not that much different from plants. Actually, when you really get down to it. I mean, what makes a plant green, leaves on the plant green, is chlorophyll. What makes our blood red is hemoglobin. Hemoglobin and chlorophyll molecularly are identical, other than a molecule of magnesium in the plant and then in the human is a molecule of iron. So otherwise, we're not that different, really. And what we're learning now is plants are very sophisticated and incredibly intelligent, and part of that, you mentioned, what I'm, known for is adaptogens. And so this certain group of plants that are really help us on every level, those are often a result of a plant's adaptation to the stressful environment that it lives in. Because if you and I were plants, we wouldn't be able to run away from anything. So if something was invading us, we can't pick up our, go walk away, and we can't go forage for food and water. So we have to learn, as stationary beings, for the most part, we have to learn to, again, adapt. We can't, go hide in a house if a virus comes. We have to.
Right.
So plants have developed, and plants have been around a lot longer than us, and they've adapted beautifully to their environment. And through that adaptation, they develop these what's called secondary metabolites, these compounds that really aid us in our health. So all these plants that we take in now provide us protection through their adaptation and their environment. There's actually a science called xenohormesis that is all about that, because hormesis is a concept of that a little bit of stress is actually good for us because it allows us to adapt and get stronger. Too much stress puts us over the edge. So there's a healthy balance to everything. And one of the things that I'm always talking about, and that represents how do we get healthy? A great word is harmony and balance. That's a great way to understand. It's not the only way, but it's a great way of starting to understand, am I in balance? Everything in traditional Chinese medicine is yin, yang, hot, cold, like all these concepts, nighttime, daytime. Everything is about finding, constantly working to find balance, chaos, organization, so so yeah, so that's just a little bit about, kind of my philosophy and uh and how much I love plants.
Oh, well, your brand new book, Adaptogens in Medical Herbalism. Give us a summary, I don't know if you can, of what someone might find in here that might help them with
Well,
their healing.
yeah, to be honest, Tanya, the book title that I wanted was Thriving Beyond Surviving. So I call it
Oh,
my Bible book. So it's really a book on all aspects of health. There's chapters on bone health, chapters on weight management, chapters on cancer, heart disease, thyroid disorders. And so a lot of the things that I feel that are uh, getting in the way of optimal health as people age are really addressed in the book. That's what the book's about. But underneath it is this foundational concept of using these group of plants called adaptogens. And I categorized them that other people haven't, because my concept is kind of like a great orchestra or great band. Bringing things together creates incredible synergy that none of those parts in and of themselves could create. So again, a musical concept is the band, the interplay of the band, or how you write for a band or an orchestra is really different than just seeing somebody sit with one instrument and play. So the concept of bringing plants together instead of studying one plant, I'm more interested in, well, what if we bring together a bunch of plants? Some are what we call primary adaptogens. Those are these kingly herbs that have been used traditionally and now been validated for their health promoting effects based on modern science. Those are herbs like Eleutherococcus, Panax ginseng, rhodiola, ashwagandha. These are kind of these kingly adaptogens, all sharing some commonality, but also having their own individual say in the matter. And then what if we coupled that with what I refer to as secondary and companion adaptogens, which are plants that people have used since the beginning of time that are kind of used culinarily more than maybe medicinally, things
hmm
like ginger and turmeric and rosemary. Um,
garlic.
Green tea, garlic, these kinds of things that have health promoting effects, but they're not primary adaptogens. They don't have a way of mitigating stress. They don't have a way necessarily of aiding the anabolic process and restoration to the endocrine system. So what makes these kingly adaptogens unique is that they promote anabolic restoration, which is a rebuilding. How our bodies regenerate is an anabolic process. How our bodies break down is a catabolic process. A simple way of understanding aging and how do we combat aging, which you'll not hear from anyone else, is anabolic restoration, which is more under the auspices of, say, looking at strength and seeing as people get older, when you see people in their 90s or 100, they're very frail. So that doesn't just happen overnight. It starts happening when you're 20 years old. Actually, that's why if you're a basketball player, an athlete, or football player, your basically career's over, by the time you're in your 30 or 30s or
Right.
LeBron James or a couple of exceptions, you're pretty much done, because not because you can't perform, it's because you can't recover fast enough. So this process of recovery and restoration isn't just a thing about muscles, it's about every molecule, about all the organs of the body. The heart is just a big muscle. So that's, I call, kind of a little bit more the masculine aspect of health, this sort of strength aspect. But just as important, maybe even more important, is again this inward kind of yin aspect of health, which is the feminine aspect. And the feminine aspect is all about pliability, moisture, flexibility, all of those things that really, when you see people get older, they're not only getting weaker and frail, but you're getting stiffer. Everything, people don't move with the fluidity that they once moved with. And so a big part of the way I work with people is how do we restore that, both those aspects. And again, in the most gentle and in the most partnership way, and maybe not in a heroic way, maybe in a very gentle way, because sometimes helping these things 10 or 20% has huge benefits throughout our health and our body. So if we can just see everything by nourishing that masculine anabolic health and that inward feminine moisture aspect, that's a good starting point to see health in a unique way. So that's, I'm always looking through these various lenses to understand health. One I call the host lens, which is more of an energetic lens, which you understand people through their own narrative of their health, through observation, through their history, through their tendencies, through their intake form. That's a really important part to get to know someone, to know where you want to focus on for their health. The second area is what I call the interplay or the microenvironment, which is always assessment through laboratory tests, like what people's blood work looks like. We're looking at healthy aging. We're looking at there are some anabolic markers we can look at, the anabolic hormones like DHEA, testosterone, thyroid hormone. We can look at things that are relative to health beyond that, vitamin D levels, certain things, selenium levels, these things, zinc levels that are omniapparent in aging that really diminish immune health and other aspects of aging that we can easily do something about very easily. We can fix those things that can really make a big difference. And the third lens that I use is what I call the etiology of the disease, or say in cancer, the pathology or the characteristics of the cancer. And so simply, I make people superhuman, like optimize health, alter the microenvironment to be the most conducive to optimal health, and then make it the least conducive to the disease, and then target the disease if you have to. So it's a three-step plan. And where adaptogens come in, they're non-specific. So they become the root system of medicine. It doesn't really matter what's wrong with you or anything. You have to build healthy roots. And those healthy roots come by taking these group of plants called adaptogens. There's certain things like certain foundational things to your diet, certain foundational things to behavior, sleep. They're just foundational to everyone. So adaptogens kind of fall into that, what I call root system medicine, to really build that up and strengthen it. Just like if you saw your health as a tree, a storm comes and 10 trees are standing, the storm comes, two or three of them fall over and die. A couple of them take a big beating, and a few just look just as good as ever. So it comes down to how strong their root systems are. So I'm always telling people, work on the root systems primarily. That's what's going to pan out the longest. Even if you have cancer, what makes the biggest difference in how people live, the quality of life and how long they live, is really the robustness of their health, really focusing on making people as healthy as possible. Because cancer is catabolic, chemotherapy is catabolic, radiation's catabolic, surgery's catabolic. Pretty much every treatment they do, and then the cancer itself is catabolic. So there's little focus on this in the world of medicine moving forward, and it's an essential component.
Integrated medicine finds the root of the problem as compared to conventional medicine, right? And that's what you're talking about, is the roots. That's how we got to find out
Mhm.
where it begins or why it is happening, instead of trying to just put a Band-Aid on it.
Yeah, and so I have a better word. I've kind of dropped the word integrative. Not that I have a problem with it, but you and I kind of grew up around the same time. Integration meant busing kids back and
Right.
forth. So it kind of like doesn't resonate with me. What I chose to use to really disseminate the Madiri care methodology is unitive medicine. So
Ah.
that's what I do, is bringing things together purposely as one, and it's the oneness and the synergy of those things that is really what's making, kind of like a puzzle. I always tell people, we're going to put some easy big pieces of the puzzle together. That's adaptogens. Certain things that again are common, that are easy to kind of build upon. But now we have to find all those small pieces to put together to make the puzzle complete. And it's the unity of that puzzle, when it's all complete, that people consistently get well and stay well. I
So,
predominantly work in oncology. That's why I brought that up.
I see.
That's my specialty.
So traditional Chinese medicine is a big part of what you do as well,
Well,
correct?
it's kind of like I'm a musician again. Like, you listen to Stan Getz, and he was a jazz saxophonist, and all of a sudden he takes a trip to Brazil and he comes out with this song "Girl from Ipanema," which is the number one, jazz song
Right.
ever recorded and ever listened to. And so he was influenced by that sound, that Brazilian sound. John Coltrane goes to India, and all of a sudden you hear him playing some of those Indian scales in his improv, over, traditional jazz songs. And so I'm influenced big time by traditional Chinese medicine because I feel it's the most beautiful and poetic system of medicine, and it lends itself beautifully to the Madiri care model as again a foundation. So these concepts of essence and yin and yang, I really love those, but I don't practice it in its traditional form. I
Hmm.
just kind of have brought that in and to create, like, again, this new paradigm understanding of medicine. But I am a scholar in American herbal medicine, so I know I have a whole collection of books from the 17th, 18th, and 19th century on herbal medicine. So I
Wow.
happen to be a lover of eclectic medicine. So one of the systems of medicine practiced in our country 100 years ago and was called eclectic medicine. Another was called physiomedicalism. Another was called Thomsonianism, and then there was homeopathy. And so those four categories made up the sort of the alternative to the allopathic system of medicine. And because of the Fletcher report, they all, other than homeopathy, pretty much got squashed. And we had a thriving eclectic medical colleges all over the country in around 1900, and by 1935 there were none. So over the span of 30,
Wow.
35 years, pretty much herbal medicine was eliminated,
I
and it
like
was it was thriving.
I like how you call yourself an eclectic clinical herbal practitioner. That does say it all.
Mhm. Yeah. It does, yeah, and that's because that's what works. Like
Yeah.
one of the beautiful things about the eclectics was they said read every medica, even the allopathic one. So I've studied everything in allopathic medicine too. I learned a long time ago if you work in oncology and you do everything right with herbal medicine and diet for somebody, if they're doing treatments that aren't helping them, they're probably accelerating their poor quality of health and their life. So I had to learn everything I could about, particularly in oncology, conventional medicine, every single drug, its mechanism of action, its potential biomarkers to predict effectiveness, biomarkers that predict toxicity. So to me, when people get well, you're pretty much improvising with six toolboxes. Again, herbal medicine, I call the soul of what I do, but that's just one toolbox. It can
Tell
only
me
do so much.
tell me about the Madiri
Yep.
Center that you started.
Well, the Madiri Foundation has three components to it. One is the clinic, which is the place where we practice our medical system, and we have several practitioners at our clinic here and Ashland, and I've trained practitioners around the country, and we see people that from all over the world. We work in person when we work on Zoom with people. So we have an apothecary there, so we make a lot of our own formulas for people. And then we use other formulas, some that I've developed in my company called Natura Health Products. And so we are doing patient care. So that's one piece. The other piece is we have an academy. So I have now a school, not complete yet. So it has 6 courses presently. I plan on having 18 in total, but we have students from all over the world that are taking the clinical training program that we offer, teaching this new model, Madiri Care. And then we have a research wing. So we had a retrospective breast cancer study that was published in a journal about a year and a half ago. We have attempted to do many clinical trials across the country with University of Ohio, with the Children's Hospital of Orange County, with Mercy Hospital, Bellinson Hospital in Israel, but it's been so difficult with their IRBs and their boards. They're so uninterested in really seeing a whole system model be implemented. They want to study one thing. Everything's about reductionism in medicine, and really good medicine is about holism and synergy. And so our whole model of studying things is not appropriate to what I do and this concept of healing. And so there's three branches, and that's what we have. But we have written a manuscript to do a clinical trial on 80 dogs with cancer, that we hope to launch in the next year,
How
with a group of vets.
exciting!
Yeah. So dogs don't require an IRB, so so it's we'll get that one launched at some point. So
Yeah, you're
yeah,
reaching
that's
out.
definitely
You're
exciting.
reaching out to humans and animals. I love it. And plants are a big part of all of it.
Oh yeah, dogs do great on herbal medicine. I mean, they just, and
No
horses too.
kidding.
Oh yeah, yeah. I love working with animals actually. Cats are hard, but not impossible. But cats. I have a cat named Curry after Steph Curry, and my son. You'll like this. My son's name is Coltrane after John Coltrane.
Really? No, you really are
Yeah,
obsessed with Coltrane.
yeah.
We are talking with Donnie Yance, clinical master herbalist and certified nutritionist. How do we find you on social media or online, or if people would like to know more about the Madiri Center or about your health product line?
Well, one place is my blog website, which is just my name, donnieyance.com, which is going to be getting a whole new facelift in the next week or two. So every week I put out a blog. This past week it's was on kefir, the health benefits of kefir. I have one coming out on Reggiano Parmesan cheese.
Ooh, yummy.
But I write on everything. Or, I'll do a blog on herbs, I did 50 something blogs on COVID-19 and herbal medicine and nutritional medicine. Really on the matter of fact, a big study just came out yesterday reviewing all the data on vitamin D levels in COVID. And so if people had low levels of vitamin D, they had more frequency of getting COVID. They had worse symptoms, more hospitalizations, and more deaths. So it's very, very clear that certain nutrients like D and zinc, selenium, there's certain things that really are foundational to keeping people's immune systems healthy. And so I'm constantly was writing on that and did a lot of interviews during that stretch. I write a lot on herbal medicine and a lot on oncology and cancer, and I mean, you name it. There's a whole, and spirituality and music. I have lots of categories, and so that's one place. The Madiri Center is another one. And then my music is all on Spotify and iTunes and all those listening those music feeds that people listen to. And I also have CDs. I still listen to CDs actually. I'm old school in that way.
Have you seen success with all the different herbal remedies?
Oh yeah, for sure. I also work with the Eagles. They won the Super Bowl, so they work with me
Wow.
and take my herbs, and so yeah. So I also do a lot of work in sports nutrition as well, because again, that's anabolic restoration, and I'm not just working in oncology, but of course, every day I see
Yeah.
miracles happen in people. So
How
that's what
exciting.
excites me, is seeing people get well, that shouldn't get well, over and over again, and people staying well. And again, my focus is on health optimization. It's not on treating a disease. I get
Right.
there, but it's really like what happens when you just make people as healthy as possible. A lot of things just start getting better. They really do. And I did want to mention, because it's the one piece I haven't, the six toolboxes, and I did say herbal medicine was one. Nutritional supplementation as another, like I said, vitamin D, zinc, certain things that we use in supplement form, and I'm very meticulous about that as well. And then we have food as medicine, and I'm writing a big book right now called Food is Medicine: Applications in Prostate and Other Cancers, and it will be as big as the Adaptogen book. Actually, it's already got like 1,200 citations, and it's 500 pages long, and I
Wow.
hope to have that done by the end of the year. So that's kind of my Bible book, and it's understanding that toolbox, like how do we use food to optimize our health. The fourth toolbox is lifestyle as medicine. That's everything from physical activity, getting enough light, and all of things that are important to our health in that toolbox. The fifth toolbox is modern medicine. So there's a place for everything in modern medicine in my system, but it fits in a unitative way with everything else. And then the sixth toolbox is spiritual care. And spiritual care has two sides to that coin. One is the nourishment of the spirit of every human being, and the other is helping to bring that out in the practitioner as well. And that in medicine, most medicine is based in fear, and love is the greatest healer. So you can't have a system of medicine where practitioners have to practice these very strict guidelines, standard of care guidelines, and they can't deviate in any way from that fear that they'd be held, accountable in some way for doing that. So and then you have patients that are normally often making decisions based in fear. So I try to eliminate that in the practitioner and say, like Einstein says, the intuitive mind is the sacred gift, the rational mind is the humble servant. Just as a musician puts all this in the brain, you study your scales, you study your harmonies, you practice. When you go to play, you don't think, you feel,
Right,
you feel what you play. So the same is true in medicine. You got to be able to have everything in here. You got to study every single day. My brain's filled with stuff. But at some point, I have to leave that and let my heart guide me into not
Absolutely.
just how to put pieces together, but also how to frame it in a way, and the interaction between the practitioner and the patient is very important too. How do you motivate somebody to believe in the healer within? How do you press the buttons that people walk out inspired, not like, oh, do I have to eat this way? Oh my gosh, what kind of diet so that I can live one more day on the planet and be miserable. No, I said, this is all about being inspired and that you fall in love with everything. And I said, otherwise it's not worth it. It's not, because I don't even think in terms of I just did a retreat in Italy, and I called it, finding an abundant, balanced, and graceful life. And so I didn't even use the word aging because I don't even like that word. I like to think in terms of life. We're just promoting life, and maybe life to some extent never ends. And so why do we have to put an end on anything? It changes, but we don't have to even say end. So when we're thinking, because I think, some of the terms that we have out there, I don't really resonate. End of life care. I mean, really, do we have to say it like that? Isn't there a
Right.
better way to frame it? Why we can say we don't know. We're entering the great mystery, but we don't have to say there's an end. We
Right.
can leave it open ending.
Well, Donnie, there's just so much to cover. It's really been a pleasure chatting with you.
You as
And then,
well.
so I look forward to all of your work in the future and how you are so dedicated to helping so many people. I just really appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
You've been listening to Food Talk for Health with Tonia King. Thanks for joining us. Eat well to be well.
Subscribe to the podcast. Send us a text with any questions. The link is included. Food Talk for Health is produced by Creative Voice and Media. Thanks so much for listening.